Welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about transmission media, and this is part 4 in the series looking at networking fundamentals. In an earlier video I did mention that it would have been a 3-part series, but guess what, based on feedback I have sought to make some adjustment. I want to keep the length of each video quite reasonable, so I made some adjustment and we are now at part 4 as opposed to 3, so the length of each video should be pretty much reasonable. The other thing too is that this series, networking fundamentals, and I hope you go and you check out the earlier videos looking at network topology, network devices, types of networks. This series is really geared towards those persons who may be doing an entry-level networking course. So you may be doing, for instance, CCNA, it may be Network Plus, it may be a computer course, entailing networking that requires that you know the content here that I am sharing. So the series is really geared targeting you if you are in that category. All right. Also, if you have been watching my videos and if you've been getting value from the videos on my channel, I'd really appreciate you becoming a subscriber if you are not yet one. So please take a few seconds, just hit that subscription button, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell also, so that when I upload a new video you'll be automatically notified. All right. Thank you, really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, so let us jump right into it. Let's begin by looking firstly at the difference between the words medium and media. Well, media is the singular form, and it is referring to that thing that is used. Let me refer to it as that thing. Right, so it is that thing that is used to transport data. Alright, so similar to how we would want to get from one geographical location to another, and there are different modes of transportation. So we have, for instance, cars, we have boats, we have airplanes, alright, that we can use. Similarly, to transport data or information, to transmit data or information, there are different things that can be used to do this, right, which is what we'll be looking at shortly. So medium would be the singular form, and media now would be the plural form. Let us just chat a little bit about these two images that you're looking at here on your screen. The first one is the communication process, and in the communication process there are a number of things which are crucial. We're talking about elements such as the sender, the message, the channel, the receiver, right? All crucial, and of course it is also important to encode and decode for communication to be effective, right? Where the sender is concerned, the sender now will be the party transmitting. So the process, most likely would start with the sender, sending a message. But before the message, can be sent, the sender has to ensure that he or she puts it in a form that the other person will be able to understand. So that's encoding. Then, and as I mentioned this here now, think about you communicating with somebody, you're sending a WhatsApp message to somebody, and depending on whom it is, you're gonna choose a language carefully based on who it is that you're gonna be communicating with. If it is somebody who perhaps is senior to you, perhaps somebody who is not so much aware of these jargons, these social media slangs, then you may keep it formal, right? Just to give you an idea there. The message now is what it is that you are trying to articulate, the points that you're trying to get across, what it is that you're intended to say. The channel would be the medium now that you choose to use to get the information to the other person. The receiver would be whom it is that you are communicating with, and the coding now is the process which should take place when it gets to the receiver. The receiver would have to decode, that is, interpret the message, figure out what it is saying, before feedback can be given to the sender, right? And that will go on for a while. Now, in the communication process, there can be this thing that is referred to as noise. And noise is anything, you know, that which reduces the quality of the communication process, anything that disrupts the communication process. So for instance, it can be, for instance, let's just say that you get your internet via wireless feed from your ISP. If you're having a thunderstorm, for instance, that may disrupt the quality of the signals you're getting, and that there will be noise. All right. If let's just say, for instance, there's a power cut in your area, and the transmitter that's the cell tower that you get your transmission from, it is down because of the electrical failure in the area. Then obviously you will not be able to communicate, make or receive any phone calls. So that can be that will be noise on in the process also. All right. And as you will see also, as we discuss further, you know, the topic, you will see that there are other things too. You know, we'll come across things like attenuation, and as a result of that, you know, because of attenuation, it is important then to think about the type of medium or media you're going to be using in the network environment. Where the OSI module is concerned, looking at the OSI module layer, and the OSI module, well, OSI really stands for Open Systems Interconnection Module, and really this is really just a guide for the key stakeholders, which, you know, would come into play when we talk about networking. So you're talking about vendors, you're talking about those persons who would develop software, and also equipment, devices, networking devices, that is, you know, in this sector. So there are two sets. We have the application set, and the application set would include the application, the presentation, the session, and we have the transport set, which now would include the which include transport, network, data link level, and you have your physical level. Now we move to look at the different types of transmission media, and there are two types of transmission media. We have guided media and we have the unguided media. Where the guided media is concerned, we're talking about physical cables here. Now we're talking about cables, and the unguided media would be the, you know, radio signals, your microwaves, your infrared, right? So this now would be wireless. We begin by looking at, that is for the guided media, we begin by looking at the twisted pair. And the twisted pair is the simplest form of transmission, that is transmission medium, and it is also the cheapest. It contains 4 pairs of color-coded wires. So as you're seeing here, there are 4 pairs. So in total, there are 8 wires. And guess what? Are you wondering right now, you know, the reason for them being twisted? So let me tell you. The reason for them being twisted is to reduce noise on the line. So there's a possibility of distortion that can take place during the communication process. And some smart guy figured out that, hey, you know, that if we twist them, it will reduce the possibility of there being distortion during the transmission process. And here we have it. All right. Now, there are the 2 different types of twisted pair cables. There are those that are unshielded and those that are shielded. And guess what? Oh, but before I get into that, let me just mention this. Let me mention that for the twisted pair, this is copper, by the way. So in the insulation here, if we peel away the insulation, you'll see a copper wire. So each of them would, you know, there'll be 8 copper wires here. All right, and you have the outer layer, you have the shielding here, and then you have the outer coating, right? Now for the shielded twisted pair, the difference between the two is that for the shielded twisted pair, you have this aluminum foil, which shields each pair. And the reason for it is really to add that extra layer of protection and to make it, you know, that much more resilient to to distortions during the transmission process. Now, in terms of pros and cons, the twisted pair, yes, easy to implement. It is relatively cheap, as I mentioned before, and yes, it can, as we would have seen it being used over the many years, used for both voice and data transmission. All right. Now, in terms of cons, it is more suited for use over short distances. It is susceptible to EMI, that's electromagnetic interference. Remember when I mentioned about the shielded twisted pair? Yeah, so that the shielding is really to reduce this EMI. The throughput, the bandwidth is pretty much low, and there's a high rate of attenuation. Let me just tell you about attenuation in case I'm wondering. Now, when during the communication process, when a signal is sent from the source, as it travels along the path to get to the receiver, there's a possibility that the signal strength will drop. Right? Think about it. For instance, I'm to shout. Right? So you hear me shouting. I'm shouting, let us say I'm shouting to my neighbor. What is going to happen? Yes, the strength of my voice, it is going to increase, and that strength is going to project it further, but there will come a point where it is going to weaken. Okay? And it is going to weaken for various reasons, because of environmental factors. For instance, the wind, for instance, may blow it away or impact it in some way or the other. There may be persons or vehicles or people with equipment in the area making noise, and that can impact the quality of the signal too. All right, so all of that now will cause attenuation and cause the signal to weaken as it travels along whatever path, whatever medium is being used to transport it. And that is why it is important to understand things like the distance you have to cover, right, when setting up a network, and what type of cable, for instance, is best suited for the distance that you have to work with. All right, which leads us to the next thing, which is the different types of Ethernet cables. So, well, the same twisted pair cables. Right, so there are different categories. So we have Cat 3, 5, 5E, 6, 6A, 7. All right, what distinguishes each? Really, increasing technology. Yes, so what you find now is that the Cat 7, for instance, would be able to transport at a faster speed than, say, the Cat 5, because of enhancement in the technology and also the bandwidth. So the Cat 7 would be able to, Cat 7. We basically just shorten the category and we'll just call it Cat. So Cat 7 able to transport more data in one transmission, that's 600 megahertz, than, say, Cat 5. All right. Now we're at the coaxial cable, and where coax is concerned, copper cable too. You have a lot of insulation. So this, now you find that this cable is there's more insulation, and because of that, now it is more resilient. It stands up better to things like EMI, right? Electromagnetic interference. So this is the same cable, which, well, it is a variation of the cable used in the cable TV industry by cable companies. Now, to look at the cable, so notice here we have here this outer jacket, this black part here. So you have the braided shield, you have the foil shield, then you have the dielectric, which is really what holds the cable intact. All right, so this is actually the wire. All right, now in terms of pros and cons, it is more expensive than, well, that would be a con. It is cheaper than the fiber optics, yes, fiber optic cable. It offers higher bandwidth than the twisted pair, better tolerance to EMI, more durable. I mean, this is bulky, like, it's crazy how bulky it is. And yes, it is more expensive and not too good. It doesn't do a really good job in transporting data over long distances. All right. So this is the coaxial cable, and of course this is obsolete. Now, fiber optic, and this is where we are now. So this is relatively in quotes, new technology. It is different, way different over the previous two predecessors, in that it is glass fiber. So remember the twisted pairs and the coaxial cable, they're copper. This now is glass fiber, that is used in these tubes here. All right, and the transmission takes place by refraction. So what you find is that the signals are introduced into, are at one end, and it bounces off the inner structures of the glass fiber. All right, so that is what this indicates, bounces, and that is how the transmission of the information takes place. Now, there are two different types of fiber optic cable. You have the single mode and you have the multi-mode. The single mode, it uses one single mode of light, whereas the multi-mode would use multiple. The single mode, smaller core, it gives a higher signal strength, and because of that, now you find that it is better suited for transmission over long distances, and it also presents less attenuation. All right, so this mode here, the single mode, would be what we get in our homes from our ISPs. So that is what they would use to supply us with internet service. Typically, you'll find that there will be two fibers. So you have one which sends and the other one that receives signals. In terms of advantages and disadvantages, advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, you find that the fiber optic, it is way more expensive than that of the two predecessors. All right. Also, the technology behind it is also different, so it requires a different technical knowledge to install it, to maintain it, and but yes, it is pretty fast. Right, lightning fast. It's talking about starting at about 1 gigabit per second. Right, so it's very fast. Also expensive. I don't know if I had mentioned that before. All right, to splice it, of course, is more difficult and complicated. All right, so that completes the guided media. Now we're looking at unguided media, and the unguided media now would be wireless transmission. But before I go further, let me just pause here to just invite you to hit that like button. If you're getting value from this video, go ahead and hit that like button, and also hit the subscription button if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel. Hit the notification bell too while you're at it. All right. So there are three. So we have radio waves, we have microwaves, and we have infrared. Now, when we talk about radio waves, microwaves, and infrared, these are essentially the signals, right, or the form in which the data or information will be transmitted. What actually transmit radio waves would be transmitters, cell towers, antennas. All right, so these radio waves will be used more so in the radio and television broadcasting industry. All right, also in the telecommunication sector industry, right, and also for Wi-Fi. All right, so just to give you an idea there, and it is omnidirectional, which means that the signals, there's no discrimination in terms of where the signals are sent. So the signals are just dispersed, they're sent out there, right? So you can pick them up in any direction, in any direction you are. Multicasting, yes, which means that as I mentioned, signals are just broadcasted, and once you have an antenna, once you have a receiver, you're able to pick up signals. All right. This covers signals over short distances. So if you notice, for instance, with the cell towers, they are strategically placed. Yeah, so I think it's something like about 20 kilometers or 20 miles intervals that they were placed, something like that. All right, because up to a certain distance now they start to lose signal. So we're at that point now where you start to leave to lose signal rather. You have to introduce another tower, to capture the signal and to send it on to the next point. All right. This does not require line of sight. Line of sight, what that speaks to is really that for transmission to take place, for instance, you have to have both the sending and receiving device facing each other, right? So this does not require that. All right. And of course, the signals can penetrate walls. Think about it. So you're in your house and you can pick up wireless signals from outside. Yeah. Right? Are you able to pick up, do you remember those old school TV antennas? All right. Now, from the microwaves will be transmitted by satellites. So these satellites now will be in orbit, outer space. So guess what? We're just concerned now. You have microwaves being transmitted to from the satellites to things like transmitters and cell towers, and then now we will pick up those signals from the cell towers or the satellite dishes, for instance, with our respective devices. All right. Microwaves, these are used in aircraft navigational systems and radar systems. So too, the thing with the aircrafts too, is that typically, along or over land masses, you find that they have these radars at strategic locations, and so that is how they're able to track the planes. Yeah, So the issue we have now is that when they go over water now, when they cross over to the water now, there's nothing there because they can't put the transmitters, the receivers, on the water, right? So they typically lose signals. So what happens at that point now is that the signals will bounce off the aircrafts, right, until they get over some landmass again. All right. Unidirectional, meaning that they're working only one direction. So transmission is only in one direction, and they cover long distances. Yeah, man. Think about it. Satellite. Think about how far we are from outer space. All right. And yes, so they require longer antennas and repeaters, and the attenuation will vary. All right, and these can pass through different atmospheric levels. Now, for the infrared now is something now that is used now with remote controls. Are we all familiar with this? All right. So they are again unidirectional, right? From the remote to the device. So we use the remote, for instance, typically with our television sets, right? And they cover short distances. No, the thing with the infrared is that they rely on line of sight. So you have to direct the remote. You have to point it to the device that you're using it with, right? Whether your fan or your smart TV or whatever it is that you're using it with. All right. Yeah, and similarly too, the microwave, would require line of sight. All right, and there's low attenuation with the infrared, and it cannot penetrate through walls. Now, finally, there are some terms here that I want to share. These are terms that you come into play when we talk about networking and communication. All right. Firstly, we'll look at the different ways that signals can be sent. That is the different forms in which transmission can be done. So it can be, for instance, a unicast, a simulcast, or a broadcast. Now, with a unicast, it is point to point. So you have one sender and one receiver in the communication process. All right. So take, for instance, you may be talking to somebody on the phone, or you send somebody a WhatsApp message. All right. So it's a one-to-one, point to point. Simulcast now is where you have one transmission being sent to two or more points. So you'll just say, like here in Jamaica, we have Radio Jamaica, and they have some sister stations. And so when they are broadcasting, well, I'm going to use the word broadcasting. When they're doing your news, for instance, rather than each station having their separate news being done. You will have the main station also transmitting the same program, news program, to the other sister channels at the same time. So that would be an example of simulcast. And there's also broadcast. Now with broadcast, there's no discrimination. You're just sending out the signals out there, right? And that is what typically would happen with the television stations, radio stations too, when they broadcast. So yeah, they have their towers which transmit signals. And once you have your antenna receiver, whatever it is that your device will be using, you'll be able to pick up signals. Next, transmission modes, and there are 3 of them. So we have simplex, half duplex, and full duplex. So with simplex, it is transmission in one direction only, and this now would be something like think about like a one-way street in which vehicular traffic flows. So traffic can only flow in one way. All right. Now with simplex transmission, look at transmission, let's just say from your television station. All right. So you have a TV station. You have a TV station, and they broadcast the signals, but you cannot respond to the signals. Right. So you have a TV, for instance. You can pick up their transmission, but you can't respond to it. Right, so you cannot, send back some communication to the transmitter, for instance. I will see it on TV. All right. Yeah, no, that sounds ridiculous. Then we have half duplex, and this now is transmission in both directions. But guess what? Not at the same time. So think about, like here in Jamaica, we have some bridges, some places like Flat Bridge, over there in St. Catherine, and with this bridge, yes. It facilitates traffic in both directions, but not at the same time. So when traffic is coming from, let us say, west to east, the traffic on the other side have to wait, right? And then after, those from west to east goes over, then those now traveling from east to west can go over. All right. Then we have full so half duplex. Now an example of that now in terms of communication would be what, like walkie-talkie. Yeah, using a walkie-talkie. All right. Then we have full duplex, and this now supports parallel transmission. So you have transmission in both directions at the same time. So guess what? While you're on the phone talking to somebody, the both of you can be talking at the same time and you're hearing each other at the same time. That's full duplex transmission. All right. Or you may be doing like a video chat. All right. Yeah. Then we have communication types. We have asynchronous and synchronous. So asynchronous means that it's not happening at the same time. All right. So let's just say, for instance, you send a message. You probably send like a SMS message, right? Or you send a WhatsApp message, all right? And then or you send an email. Yeah, so you send an email. And sometime after, somebody, the person you send it to, it responds. So that's pretty much slow. And then you have synchronous transmission, and this now is where you have no real-time communication taking place. So you have data, yes, flowing in both directions, but you also are able to get responses instantaneously. So this is pretty much fast. All right. So that concludes my presentation, looking at transmission media. All right, how was it? If you got value from the video, again, I'm going to invite you to just go ahead and smash that like button, and also remember to share the videos, and to, yes, please hit that subscription button. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, hit it. Subscribe to my channel, and while you're doing that, hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified when I upload new videos. All right, so that's it. Until next time, take care.